Domestic violence is a large problem all around the world, too big for one person to try to solve. Many articles have been written about how big of a problem it is and how it needs to be fixed, but there has been no change. The majority of the domestic abuse that happens is men taking advantage of women and using their superior strength against them, and there is nothing that most women can do about it. There are support groups put in place to try to unify the people who this has occurred with, but this paper aims to come up with a way to unify a larger group of people to take a stand for what they believe in. Through primary research, the essay will portray the feelings that many different groups of people feel about the problem in order to come up with a specific way to try to limit domestic violence. The secondary sources found online show the attitudes that people have toward it. Attitudes of University Students Towards Domestic Violence Against Women by Demet Aktis, a Turkish writer who shows the way that college students feel about domestic abuse through interviews and surveys. Also, many of the articles show examples of ways that people are working towards fixing the problem. Creative strategies for treating victims of domestic violence by Erin Brinkley, an assistant professor at Wake Forest University who received her PhD in counselor education and counseling, aims to show a mixture of ways to help people cope with the problems that occur from their experiences. One of the main problems that follow the presence of domestic violence is the problems that it emotionally causes children and families as a whole. People are trying to prepare their children early on to try to prevent it by educating them to show and evaluating the effectiveness of domestic abuse prevention education. Are certain children more or less receptive to the messages conveyed by Claire Fox, a senior lecturer of psychology at Keele University, Mary Louise Core, a lecturer at Queen's University Belfast, and in the School of Social Sciences, Education, and Social Work, David Gadd, a former lecturer at Keele University in criminology and now works in the School of Law at the University of Manchester, and Julia Sim, a professor of healthcare research at Keele University. Also, there are articles that talk about the emotional strains that witnessing or being around domestic violence can have on children. Domestic violence is a very big problem when it comes to the law as well. The essay will explore many different court cases that have occurred in the United States, along with the article like Situational Prevention of Domestic Violence, a review of security-based programs by Tim Prenzler, a professor of criminology at the University of the Sunshine Coast, and Lauren Fardell, a professor in criminology at the University of the Sunshine Coast, that serve the purpose to discuss the security that is placed concerning it and how it needs to be changed. Domestic violence is too large of a problem for one person to solve, but this paper is written in order to come up with a unified idea that can help to unify like-minded people to come up with a solution or a way of preventing it more than it already is. In my research project of what are the effects of domestic abuse and how can it be lessened, the researcher will be using mixed method. This means that they will be using a mixture of quantitative and qualitative data. They will be using a moral imperative with the goal of putting rules or standards in place to limit the effects of domestic abuse. The specific methodologies that they will be using are survey research, and phenomenological research. Survey research is quantitative and is done in order to determine the distribution of a certain characteristic in a population. The researcher will be using this method in order to figure out the general population's feeling about the topic. Phenomenological research is qualitative and it is done in order to understand people's viewpoints on social realities. This fits in with the research question because the main focus is to find out find out how people feel about domestic abuse and how serious people are taking the actions against it. In the phenomenological research, the same is done. The mixed method design that will be used is convergent design. Convergent design is when the researcher collects quantitative and quantitative data all at the same time with respect to the same goal. For the research, the researcher will be completing a mixed method project with both primary and secondary research using survey research and phenomenological studies. The primary research will be completed through both surveys and interviews, trying to get a more personal viewpoint on the matter. The secondary research will include research done on other people's writings and on the topic. Other writings on personal experiences and writings of court cases that have been published for the public. This research being done is in order to try to find a uniform way to solve domestic violence and how often it happens, and in order to unite the people who want to make a change. The interviews will include no more than 5 people. In the interviews, the researcher will ask general, non-invasive questions regarding their experiences. If a participant does not feel comfortable answering the questions, it will be skipped. For my survey, the researcher will complete a form and it will be given to a variety of students at St. Petersburg High School, both genders and all grades. Also, it will be given to other teenagers outside of St. Petersburg High School in the general area. It will also be given, the same survey will be given to random adults around town to try to give a random sampling. The surveys will be given to between 40 and 50 people altogether. The methods of survey research and phenomenological studies work best for the research question because both of them have the intention of looking at the personal views of individuals. That is a large part of the paper. They are best for addressing the goals that have been put in place because the goal is to limit the effects by using a moral imperative and putting goals of creating rules or standards that the community as a whole agrees with. This can only be accomplished if there is a broad understanding of how people feel about it.